Mr. Tanner.
Here.
Mr. Canulet.
Here.
Mr. Belisario.
Present.
Ms. O'Brien. Here. Mr. Stefanczyk.
Here.
Mr. Bender.
Here.
Mr. Artigue. Mr. Smith. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. First thing on the agenda is presentations. And if you'll notice on the off-the-floor agenda, we have two presentations. I'd like to move those up till now. So, motion made and second. Any objection from the council? Any objection from the audience? Hearing none, please vote. All right.
Motion is unanimous. No one absent.
Thank you. The first presentation has been postponed. The second presentation is a proclamation to Ms. Cheryl Araby. Ms. Brister.
Ms. Pope, you want to come up with us too? Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This is a proclamation whereas Cheryl Araby is a lifelong devoted educator and administrator, having served in St. Tammany Parish for 34 years and in Baton Rouge and Okinawa for 6 years. And whereas Mrs. Araby served as the school district's data supervisor in 2005 and was appointed Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction in 2007, and led the school district's curriculum and instruction department for the past 7 years. And whereas Mrs. Araby served as principal of Lake Harbor Middle School for 4 years from 2001 to 2005. And whereas Mrs. Araby has been instrumental in the success of St. Tammany Parish school system as a leader in the state of Louisiana and will be dearly missed by all as she enters retirement. Now, therefore, I, Patricia Brister, as president of St. Tammany, do hereby recognize the contributions and accomplishments of Cheryl Araby, and I encourage all citizens of St. Tammany to thank her for her lifelong service and contributions to the community, to St. Tammany Parish, and to our most precious asset, our children. Thank you, Cheryl, from the bottom of our hearts. I'm going to ask Mr. Tanner to say something before we allow you to speak, Cheryl, if that's okay. But we have had such a wonderful relationship with the school board and Mr. Foltz and Ms. Araby since my term began, and I understand how hard she has worked over all these years and how many lives she's touched in St. Tammany Parish. So we owe her so much gratitude, and thank you for being here tonight. Mr. Tanner?
Thank you. Cheryl, I apologize for all the heartaches that I gave you for.
And you did.
And I did. I certainly did. But Cheryl has done a wonderful job for the St. Tammany Parish school system. She moved up the ladder as she should have, and we appreciate everything you've done for the kids in this parish. Thank you.
Foltz, do you want to say a word?
Thank you. Now, I walk in tonight and Mr. Tanner's chairing the meeting and Dennis Sharp is leading the prayer. So, so I know we're in good hands here in St. Tammany Parish. No, I appreciate this. You know, when Cheryl retired at our last school board meeting, the thing that I said to Cheryl, the thing I admire about her the most, certainly admire her knowledge and ability to do curriculum instruction, but the thing I admired about her the most was her ability to balance her family life with her work and her school life. And as we all know as public service, that's not an easy thing to do all the time. But Cheryl has always put her family first, but never at the expense of our school system. So we certainly miss her. We're proud of everything that she did, and I know that she's going to continue to contribute in St. Tammany Parish for many years to go. So congratulations.
First of all, I'd like to thank you. It's a real honor to be recognized by our parish president and all of you here this evening. But it's just been a wonderful ride for me to be serving this great community. I certainly have a lot of interest in it. I now have 6 grandchildren who are four of them attending our public schools. And so we plan on continuing. I plan on doing a lot of volunteer work, helping my mother get over surgery right now. And so once that is complete, I will plan to be out there and volunteering in a lot of different aspects. We have a great community, and I thank you for the service that you're continuing to do. And I promise you that I will be out there working as hard as I can to keep our community the best that it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and enjoy your retirement.
I will.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, go to your board meeting.
The next thing on the agenda, we'd like to ask Mr. Shannon Davis to come forth and introduce some new employees in his department.
Thank you, Chairman Tanner. Our parish president, Ms. Brister, has asked us to enlarge and take on additional responsibilities in public works. We will be handling all of your district capital in the coming year. We look forward to the challenge and hope to be available to you at any time. Mike Noto is our first guy. Mike is going to be my new assistant director in charge of public works. Mike comes to us from the city of Slidell. He's been down there for about 30 years now. He started out as a laborer and worked his way up to the head of public operations. He brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to this job, and Mike and I have worked closely together with different projects with the city and the parish, and I look forward to having him on our team. Our other person here is Mark Crawford. Mark has been with the parish for about 30 years, and he's worked in almost every capacity all over the parish. He's been my go-to guy for about the last 12 years. He's already on the job and doing a great job. I look forward to these two guys making my life a lot easier. So, anyway, Mike, would you like to say something?
Well, I'd like to thank Ms. Pat for selecting me. It's an honor and it's a pleasure. We live in the best parish in the state, and I look forward to bringing my 30 years of experience, to the table and working with each and every one of you. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I also would like to thank the administration for giving me this opportunity, and I look forward to working with them as well as the council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, guys.
Thank you.
Mike will start Monday.
Yes.
Yes.
Mark is already on the job, and Mike starts Monday morning. And I can go on vacation.
Excuse me, Mr.
The
Chairman.
next thing on the agenda is a. What? Oh, I'm sorry, Jerry.
I just want to make a brief statement while Shannon and Mike and Mark are here. I want to thank Ms. Pat for these appointments, hires, okay? I've known Mike and his family since before I ran for the Slidell City Council in 1998. In my 5.5 years on the Slidell City Council, the good news I want to say to my colleagues is I think the world of Shannon Davis. Always have, still do, always will. I have that same feeling about Mike Noto. He is a can-do person. He gets things done, and he will be an asset to parish government, both to the administration and to us as council members. I met Mark for the first time tonight, but based upon the amount of help I get from his brother Greg, Mark's got good breeding. So, Ms. Pat, I think great choices. And Mike, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Mr. Bender. The next thing is the presentation of a proclamation to the Association of New Orleans Metropolitan Association of Realtors in recognition of their Appreciation Day, which is on March the 16th, 2015. And I'll read the resolution. Is anybody from the Realtors here? Come in. You want to come? Come on.
I help him out, so hopefully he won't bite me.
She won't bite me. I'm a realtor also.
Good.
Whereas the New Orleans Metropolitan Association of Realtors was established in 1915 and is celebrating the 100th anniversary this year, and whereas the New Orleans Metropolitan Association of Realtors consists of over 4,000 members in 10 parishes, including St. Tammany Parish, and whereas the New Orleans Metropolitan Association of Realtors serves to unite those engaged in recognized branches of the real estate profession for the purpose of exerting a beneficial influence upon the profession and related interests, and whereas realtors subscribe to a strict code of ethics and are expected to maintain a higher level of knowledge of the process of buying and selling real estate, whereas we recognize the dedication that local realtors have to the New Orleans metropolitan area and contributions they have made to that area, including St. Tammany Parish, and whereas the event will honor Greater New Orleans realtors and serve to celebrate the commitment they have helping people fulfill their dreams of home ownership and protecting private property rights. And whereas the New Orleans Metropolitan Association of Realtors is holding its third annual Realtor Appreciation Day on March the 16th, 2015. Now, therefore, we, the St. Tammany Parish Council and Parish President of St. Tammany Parish, do hereby proclaim the Parish of St. Tammany the 16th of March 2015 to be Realtor Appreciation Day in St. Tammany Parish, and invite all realtors to attend the event at the Hilton New Orleans Riverside. More dedication is available at www.nomar.org. Congratulations, Nomar. Thank you.
I'm okay.
Thank you. The next presentation is a presentation by Stark Disability Awareness by Diane Baham. Diane?
Hi, I'm Diane Baham, Executive Director of Stark, and March is Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month nationwide. I am very grateful for the opportunity to serve individuals with disabilities in our parish, and want to thank each one of you for the respective areas in which you serve and for the advocates that you are for our special citizens. Latest statistics show that approximately 54 million Americans have at least one disability, and 1 in every 6 children that are born with a developmental disability. Stark serves about 1,400 individuals and their families right here in St. Tammany Parish, and it's pretty well neck and neck throughout our parish between Covington, Mandeville, Slidell, and then there's Pearl River and Abita Springs, Lacombe, and throughout our parish. It is a wonderful opportunity to make a difference for our people in this parish. One of the things that Stark seeks to do through services, training, advocacy, resources, and community connections is to enhance and enrich the lives of the people that we serve. And one of the ways we do that is through our art therapy program. You'll find in front of you tonight, we have each of you a pack of note cards and a calendar. Those note cards, if you will notice, we have just stretched our art department to include pet portraits. And so you will see there are pet portrait cards at the beginning of your pack of cards. We hope you'll share those with folks and let them see they can order those from us. And then the last 6 cards in your packet are a picture of the parish council office itself, and that's for you to use as freely as you would like to. Again, we thank you for your service. We thank you for the joy of serving in this community. And with us tonight, I do have some of our Stark staff and board members. I would like for Mr. Steve DeVerney, our board president, to stand. Next to him is Mr. Mike Kilwanowski, one of our board members, Mark Baham, assistant director at Stark, Suzanne Bourgeois, Director of Operations at Stark, and Christy Myers, who is the head of our Human Resource Department. And they join me now in applauding you for a job well done. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Diane. And on behalf of the council, I too would like to congratulate Stark and all the good work that they've done this year, and as far as I guess, I can't remember 30 years that you've been there for sure. And the way Stark has grown and the services that y'all provide is just astronomical. We thank you very much. Mr. Groby.
Miss Diane, I heard you get up there and graciously thank us. It's us and the public who should thank y'all, without question. Thank you.
Somebody else? All right. Here now, the next thing on the agenda is consent calendar. Any items not pulled from the consent calendar are automatically approved and held by one vote. Items pulled for the consent calendar are discussed and voted upon individually. Does any council member have any other ordinance, resolution to pull from the consent calendar? Hearing none. Does any member in the audience have anything that they want to pull from the consent calendar? Ms. Bristol, does your staff have anything? I think we have one ordinance that Mr. Stevens has asked that we be pulled, and that's going to be ordinance calendar 5352, and we will pull that ordinance also. If, with that said, we will vote on the consent calendar. Please vote. Motion by Mr. Candulat, seconded by Mr. Goo. Any discussion? All in favor, please vote. I always say all in favor.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
All right, thank you very much. First item that has to be pulled is ordinance calendar 5347, which is an ordinance amending the budget, and I'll call on Mr. Stefanczyk to explain that ordinance.
I'm not going to explain it all, but we do have the coroner's request in there. He was at our last meeting asking us to approve the addition of a pathologist and a technician. That's prorated over the year, $188,000, and that's what's in there to cover that. So, any other thing? We just need. He needs to know. Everybody needs to know we're going forward with that.
Okay. That's up for introduction, right? Or is it? Motion to introduce, Mr. Bender, Mr. Stefanczyk. Okay, the next ordinance is 5352. Let me me see if I can find that. Ms. Stevens, while I'm looking for that, you want to come up and ask your questions or take your 2 minutes and discuss this particular ordinance?
Thank you. Terry Lewis Stevens. My concern is that with the changing of the departments and melding engineering into public works, this is contrary to what normally happens in the outside world. In the engineering world, typically engineers engineer and then ask public works to undertake what has been engineered. It isn't usually the other way around. So although I've heard wonderful, wonderful things about Mr. Shannon, only wonderful things, in fact, I am concerned that the Department of Engineering would not be standalone and would perhaps not have a director, or would it have a director? And if it is going to have a director, then we've got more than $100,000 employee in that particular department. So I'm just concerned about how this is going to work for the public good if those 2 departments are not standalone, and if engineering doesn't control public works controls engineering. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the audience have anything, anybody from the council? Do I have a motion to refer to Mr. Canulet? Mr. Gu, referred to the council at the next meeting.
That should be a motion to introduce.
So now all the resolutions we've done, right? All of the resolutions on the agenda were in the consent calendar. So the next item on the agenda is appeals. Janine Stengel and Barbara Dodd appealing the Zoning Commission denial on February the 3rd for a text change to the Parish Code of Ordinance, Section 706, accessory buildings and structures regarding the permitted size of boathouses and designated scenic streams. Note, to concur with zoning denial, a simple majority vote is required. Adoption of the resolution. To override zoning denial, a majority of the council is required, and adoption of ordinance calendar number 5307 will be introduced. That was introduced October the 2nd and scheduled for public hearing on April the 2nd. Do I hear discussion? Ms. Dodd.
Just briefly, thank you. Council members, my name is Barbara Dodds with the League of Women Voters of St. Tammany, and I'm appealing a decision made by the Parish Zoning Commission at its last meeting. The Commission rejected the amendment to the parish ordinance governing boathouses submitted to them by the council. I never heard a clear reason for this, except they didn't like it. There seemed to be some confusion since the chairman, after the meeting, tried to explain that they had rejected the whole thing. There were 3 positive votes of the commissioners attending. I'm asking that you reverse the commission's decision and approve the amendment to the ordinance already in the code that will keep the size of boathouses on designated scenic streams or rivers to 800 square feet, as they have been for many years. Boathouses on canals are not subject to this limitation, nor are boathouses on the lake. Our scenic rivers are a valuable natural resource, and Representative Ed Scoggin many years ago recognized this when he was one of the originators of the program. The research I have done, and I'd like the council to have this, if someone would pass it. The research I have done indicates that for the years 2013 and 2014, there were only 4 variance requests for boathouses to the Board of Zoning Adjustment. Of these, 3 were on canals and 1 possibly on the lakefront. Not 1 was on a scenic stream. Please help keep our scenic streams scenic and reverse this decision from the Zoning Commission. I thank you very much for your time. Jeannie?
My name is Jeannie Stangl, 59385 Neslo Road. I've lived on Bayou Liberty for more than 30 years. Starting in 1998-99, my neighbors along Bayou Liberty and I began submitting information to Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries and lobbying our public officials to achieve the scenic designation for Bayou Liberty. We feel that the natural beauty of these streams is a great resource for St. Tammany Parish. Bayou Liberty, Camp Salmon Nature Park is on Bayou Liberty. The Tammany Trace crosses Bayou Lacombe, another scenic stream. I don't think the general public would profit or their lives would be enriched by a view of wall-to-wall large boathouses. Please try to preserve the natural beauty of our scenic streams of St. Tammany Parish. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody here on the other side that wants to speak? Do any councilman have anything they want to say? Mr. Stefanczyk, I see you reaching.
I'll just make it brief. I think we sent this to the Planning Commission as a request from this council. I was sort of surprised that they didn't really consider it any longer than they did, and the rationale that they had for it, and considering that the BOA doesn't do, I mean, the BOA is not overloaded with requests on bayous or scenic bayous. I think that I would like to see this, us to overturn the decision of the Planning Commission, and so I would move to override the zoning denial.
Motion made and seconded. Mr. DeGoo?
Yeah, I have one question. May I ask the staff member?
Sure.
Sydney, what was the rationale behind the commission's decision?
There was some discussion about the possibility of confusion as to what was scenic stream, what was not scenic stream, particularly when you get into tributaries. I believe Mr. Han explained that in the statute it's clearly delineated what is scenic stream and what is not scenic stream. But there was some concern that there may be some confusion with the two different sizes. There was one person in opposition to the language at the meeting. His concern was that it would restrict some of his potential clients, his real estate agent, to be able to build what they want to do on, he particularly mentioned the Tchefuncte River. But that was essentially the discussion, the extent of the discussion.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Grovey?
Yeah. Before the meeting, Ms. Dodds had brought something to my attention I wasn't quite sure legally on. I want to ask Mr. Hand a question. Ms. Dodds seems to think that although there are no scenic bayous or rivers that we have officially designated, this is going to impact either property owners or us if they go to get a scenic river designation, but depending on the size of the boathouse. It kind of confused me. That's why I'm asking on the so does it impact us on the size?
Confused Ms. Dodd also.
I'm sorry. Ms.
Yeah,
Dodd,
we have a list in the
if I understood, it's kind of convoluted.
Yeah, we have a specific list in the Legislative Act that created the Scenic Rivers Act.
Okay.
And it includes many streams and waterways in St. Tammany Parish. And in the act itself, it specifically describes what is covered in a particular, like Tchefuncte River, Bayou Lacombe, from the headwaters, it gives specific designations. And it only applies to, in certain areas, tributaries that come off of particular rivers, but it designates those. So it's very clear as to what it covers, what the Scenic Rivers Act covers. And it's very clear that the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries Commission, anybody who would try to get a permit would both have to come to the parish but also go to the state go through a hearing process, a submittal to DEQ with the state, tourism with the state, and there's a list of about 15 items that have to be considered prior to the state issuing a permit to build a structure. But there is no limitation on size in the state legislative act.
Okay. I was just concerned when you brought to me, it's kind of it's an issue versus straight versus scenic type of offshoot of the main. That's what was confusing me when you tried to explain it.
Well, all of the cases that I reviewed from the Board of Adjustments were on canals, and those are not natural tributaries in any sense. And the law specifically designates certain tributaries, and it's there in the law. So there isn't that kind of confusion, and no one asked for this kind of explanation at the Zoning Commission.
Anybody else have any discussion?
I got another question.
Over here.
Lights on.
Go ahead.
I have this question of Mr. Groby, because I think this is going to have a direct impact on Bayou Lacombe, whereas, down on, what is it, Lake Street? Yes. Is the one where there are a large number of boathouses that are built there. How is that going to impact?
No. I was afraid that the way that they had changed the verbiage would impact maybe cases further. It was an issue about the canals versus the main water bodies. That's what I was a little bit confused about. That's all. I just want to make sure we didn't cause a problem for us later on. That's all.
Is it going to preclude people from building, because there are a lot of houses on there that actually have boathouses under them. Now, the question is whether or not it's going to impact them in a negative way where they can't do it. That's my question. Ms. Barber, maybe you can help me with that.
Whether or not the boathouses that are there,
No, anything new, because there are still some vacant lots.
a few, most of the houses on Lake Road that I remember seeing, and I was on the bayou in January, they're mostly underneath the houses. They're not protruding onto the bayou at all.
They're attached to the house.
They're underneath.
Right, they're actually attached to the
Yeah. They're not obstructing anybody's view or changing the bayou in any way. And there was a airplane hangar up at the top of Lake Road.
I remember that.
And that's been there for as long as I can remember, so I don't think that would be of any consequence in this discussion.
Mr. Bender?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask a question of Mr. Hand.
Sure.
First of all, just to make a statement based upon what I see here that's been provided by Ms. Dodds, it appears that there have been no requests before the Board of Adjustments in the last 2 years for a variance on a scenic river. That's what I see here. There's only been a total of 4 boathouse variance requests in a total 2-year period, so I don't think that's an overloaded docket. But, Terry, my question is this. If we vote to override the Zoning Commission recommendation tonight, the people that have boats that want to go before the Board of Adjustments, they will still have the ability to exercise that right to go before the Board of Adjustments and ask for that variance, correct?
That is correct. And then it's up to the Board of Adjustments, according to their rules and guidelines, to determine if certain criteria are met in order for a variance to be granted.
Okay, but they will have the opportunity to potentially
absolutely.
grant a variance based upon the rules of law.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other discussion? I have a motion by Mr. Stefanczyk, seconded by Mr. Belisario. Hearing no other discussion, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, this ordinance will be heard on April the 2nd, 2015. Motion's been made and seconded. We introduce the ordinance. She says we don't need to. We've already introduced it one time, so we're just going to have a hearing on the adoption of the ordinance at the April 2nd meeting. Okay, the next appeal has been withdrawn, and from my understanding, we need to concur with the zoning approval and the introduction of the ordinance. Motion made and seconded. Mr. Thompson, Mr. Gu. Any discussion? Please vote. Anybody in the audience? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
The next appeal is, oh, I'm sorry, we do have to do a motion to make up your mind. Mr. Canulet move for introduction, seconded by Mr. Belisario. It'll be going to the next meeting for introduction, I guess. Okay, we're up to ordinances for adoption, right? Do what? Oh, number 3. Oh, that's right, we didn't do it. Nolathon appealing the Planning Commission's denial on February the 10th for re-subdivision of Red Gap Acres Block 2, A2 Suburban District, located west of Ravine Drive and south of Harrison Avenue, south of Covington, Ward 4, District 5. Who is the...
Hi, I'm Noella Thorne. I have a map. I think it was discussed that there was a sewage problem in the area. My address, 220 Claiborne Court, Jefferson, Louisiana.
You may proceed.
Okay. I think it was said that there was too many sewers in the area, that it couldn't break my lot into 2 for that reason. It would be an extra sewer system. But most of these lots are little 100-foot lots, and I don't know of any sewer problems they're having. But I have a map here on these lots. I have a bigger one if you have a bigger copy machine. This was the original. I took that off of. These are lots.
You can continue.
Well, it's just that I feel that another sewer wouldn't hurt that area because they're 2 big lots. One is a corner lot that can't be divided, and the one on the other side of this lot, people are living there, and they look like they're going to stay. I don't think there's any extra sewers on either side. There's a playground across the street, and we're having a lot of trouble selling this lot. We sold one on Gulch that's 100-foot, and the real estate agent said he's been getting a lot of requests for another 100-foot lot, and if we can't break it up, we'll never sell it. It was a trust. I'm a trustee for my mother, who passed away in 2007, and we've been trying to sell it even before that time.
Okay. Is there anybody here wanting to override the denial? Mr. Gu, this is your district?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I've had an opportunity. I drove the area. It is kind of a mixed bag back there. Some of the lots have been split. But I'm going to point out that the recommendation for staff was for denial based on the problems that we're having with DEQ. We're under the gun try to address that issue. And in my opinion, the idea of increasing the amount of sewer plants that are going to have runoff over what's already been platted for that subdivision just doesn't fit our plan, what we need to do going forward with the sewer and water problems. Additionally, it'll double the amount of runoff coming off of that property. As you know, if you let one, then everybody else is going to come in and going to want to say, me too. And the next thing you know, you've got some real problems. And there are some issues that are being created on both ends of that area, the southern side of Red Gap and also the north side. So I just, simply because somebody can make money or make more profit off of the sale of the lot through splitting it up, I don't think that's compelling reason to go ahead and create two would be substandard lots within that area. So my motion is to concur.
There aren't that many big lots that can be split. Most of them are 100-foot lots.
Excuse me, Mr. Senator. We have it now. So the motion is made and seconded that we deny the appeal. Is there any discussion from anybody else want to discuss it from this end? I'm going to give you one more chance to speak, Ms. Stone.
Well, I'd like to get rid of the lot before I pass away. And it's been no sales at all. Nobody wants a double lot. These are all small houses in the area.
Okay, thank you. All right, motion's been made and seconded that we deny. All those in favor, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Is there a second? Motion moved and seconded for a resolution concurring with the denial. You can vote on that. Any discussion on that? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Next are ordinances for adoption. Ordinance calendar 5336, an ordinance to authorize the parish president to extend a lease on a portion of the Folsom barn. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion from the audience? Staff? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Ordinance calendar 5337, ordinance to declare multiple tax adjudicated properties as surplus property. Motion by Mr. Bender, seconded by Mr. Falconer. Is there any discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Ordinance calendar 5338, ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire certain parcels, right-of-ways, and or servitudes for the Folsom Barn expansion project. Mr. Thompson, Mr. Sharp, any discussion? Anybody in the audience? Staff, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Ordinance calendar 5339, amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 74.46 acres from A4 to A3 to PF1 Ward 6 District 11. Mr. Stefanski.
So moved.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion from the council?
Just quickly, this is to expand our animal care services. That's primarily what this is going to be used for. So,
Any other discussion? Anybody in the audience? Staff? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Ordinance Calendar 5340, an ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 3 acres from A1 to A1 and mobile home overlay, Ward 1, District 3. Mr. Thompson, Mr. Faulkner, any discussion? Any opposition from that? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Ordinance Calendar 5341, ordinance amending the parish zoning map to reclassify .36 acres from A5 and HC to A7, Ward 4, District 5. Mr. Gould, Mr. Thompson, any discussion? Anybody in the audience? Staff? Please vote.
Mr. Faulkner? Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire certain parcels, right-of-ways, and/or servitudes for short road drainage improvement projects, Ward 4, Districts 4 and 5. Motion made and seconded. I have Mr. Falcon second. We have 2 cards. I'll let Ms. Stevens.
Could you do the other one first, please?
Pardon?
Could you do the second one first, please?
Second what?
Second card.
Oh. Miss Jennifer? Is she here? Name, please, address.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Frischneck, and I live at 801 Dove Park Road, right here in Covington. And I have several subdivisions worth of drainage flowing on my property with contaminants such as E. coli and fecal matter. It cuts across my entire property, and the parish does not have a legal right by means of servitude or right-of-way to do this. And I'm asking all of you to urge them to please reroute the drainage so that it does not flow onto my neighbor's property or onto mine.
Mr. Chairman, this isn't germane to the ordinance that's at hand. This is something that's totally different.
Actually, it is with...
Mr. Chairman, I ask for rule of order.
I want to know what road did you say Sharp Road? You live on
Well,
Sharp
I'm
Road?
actually I'm going to talk about that as well. I wanted to let you understand where I was coming from.
Well, we're going to move on because what you're talking about is not germane to this ordinance.
Okay, I think it is, but thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stevens?
With respect to what you were just handed, it's the Louisiana Constitution, Article 4, that has to do with property. And all I wanted to do was to confirm that in the Sharp Road acquisition of servitude for drainage, that what you're following and the rule of law is that for public use, land is acquired through servitude, through expropriation, through purchase, but it has to be legally acquired and then adopted by this body. Is that correct?
I'm not answering that. I have no idea.
Well, you have a copy of the Louisiana State Constitution in front of you, and it is consistent also with the Fifth Amendment and 14.
This is connected to a lawsuit that Ms. Stevens has filed against the parish.
No,
she's
this
seeking,
isn't.
Yes, it is.
This is about
It certainly
Sharp
is.
Road, whether or not what you're doing
As a point of
there.
order, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I'm going to Terry, that you're out of order because I don't think you're discussing our ordinance. I think you're trying to use this for forum for your lawsuit against the parish, and so
I'm trying to establish whether or not one item is consistent with another item. If there's a specific way that you're going to acquire property, I'm just trying to confirm that.
I ask you to please sit down. Mr. Goo.
I'm going to move on the ordinance, please.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Ordinance calendar number 5343, an ordinance to amend the 2014 operating budget, amendment number 11. Mr. Canulet, Mr. Stefanczyk, discussion by the council, discussion by the audience. Ms. Stevens, you haven't speak?
No, I'm fine.
Anybody else? Anybody else in the audience? Administration? Ready to vote? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Ordinance 9, ordinance to amend the 2014-2018 capital improvement budget. Mr. Thompson, Mr. Belisario, any discussion by the council? Any discussion by the audience? None from the staff. Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Ordinance, next ordinance is ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify .997 acres from NC4 to HC2, Ward 9, District 1.
So moved.
Mr. Dean, Mr. Goo. Any discussion by the council? Any discussion in the audience?
Mr. Chairman, could I ask over to your right one question? How can this be Ward 9, District 1? Must be Ward 1, District 1.
I think it's Ward 9, District 11. I was
okay.
waiting to
Thank
see, because I do believe, I'm looking at that saying, I think that's in my district. So I think we have a typo there. It is Ward 9, District 11. That's a piece of property that went through zoning from my district.
Gee, I'm so glad I asked the question before Mr. Stefanczyk. Don't I get a point for that?
Yes.
Any discussion on this matter? All right, we have a motion by Mr. Faulkner, Dean and Faulkner. All right, any discussion by the audience? None for the staff, please vote.
Ms. O'Brien, Mr. Stefanczyk, Mr. Smith. Would you like to vote? Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
What does this say? Just go to TJ. All right. Ordinance amending the official parish zoning map to reclassify 4.8715 acres from HC2 Highway Commercial District to I2 Industrial District, Ward 9, District 14. Mr. TJ.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We'd like to, as we introduce this, as we bring this forward for adoption, we would like for the record to reflect a document from the clerk of court's office that has been put into that record signifying a deed restriction, and make sure that that is a part of the minute for this particular record.
We have that, Mr. Smith. Is there any other discussion? Motion's been seconded, made by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Canulet. Any other discussion? Anybody in the audience? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Appointments, St. Tammany Parish Government, resolution to appoint Greg Byers to replace Jeff Barker, who resigned on the Board of Directors of St. Tammany Parish Fire District Number 6. Mr. Sharp. Motion made and seconded by Mr. Sharp and Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Anybody in the audience, staff? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one's absent.
All right, the next, I'm going to read the things that are going into executive session, and as I read each one of them, if somebody in the audience has some comment on it, they may come forth and do so. The first one is St. Tammany Parish Government versus James W. Welch, Commissioner of Conservation, 19th Judicial District for the Parish of East Baton Rouge. Do we have anybody in the audience that wants to speak on that? All right, we'll go to number 2, which is Ronald A. Goo versus St. Tammany Parish Government, Supreme Court number 214, OC 2471, Court of Appeals, First Circuit number 2013, CA 1387, 22nd Judicial District number 2013-10576F. Anybody have any discussion from the audience on that? Hearing none, we'll go to the third one. Third one is Terry Lewis Stevens et al. Versus St. Tammany Parish Government, 22nd Judicial District, November the 14th, 10649, Division H. Anybody have any discussion on that? Come forward.
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Frischnick again. I would love to discuss this issue because I, again, have water flowing through my entire property, all 200 feet, and all of this water is contaminated with E. coli and bacteria that my dogs run through, I've been walking through. We didn't know any of this. And if the parish would have had a servitude when I bought my property in 2007, I would not have purchased the property because I would not have wanted all of this running through my property. And I'm asking all of you to please urge the parish to just reroute the drainage. Just close off the culvert that is forcing the water onto my neighbor's property, then onto mine, because you're already widening Dove Park Road, right? That's already in the works. And all the drainage is going to be underground. So it will all flow together. It'll just be off of our property. I don't feel that any neighbor should bear the burden of 3 subdivisions worth of water full of contaminants. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Anybody else? I need a motion to go into executive session. Mr. Goo, Mr. Stefanczyk, all those, please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
All right, we're going to go into a. When we come out, we will be taking some action. All right, please vote, please, on your machine to come out of executive session.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
All right. Now let them back in. Turn 'em loose. All right, we have passed a motion to come out of executive session, and I call on our attorney at this time to make recommendations.
Regarding the second matter that we went into executive session regarding no action is required, but I will read into the record the judgment of the court, which has been finalized now. It is further ordered that the writ of mandamus issue ordering that the parish, within 30 days of the finality of this judgment, withdraw the rezoning process previously commenced on the 10 acres and correct the ministerial mapping error to reflect the entirety of Mr. Goo's 36.6 acres, including the 10 acres, is zoned HC3, pursuant to ordinance number CS number -09-2116.
Okay, and the item of number 3, do we have a motion on that?
Yeah.
Mr. Goo?
The resolution asks for the appointment of James L. Bradford III, the law firm Daigle, Fiss, and Kenshin, I believe it is, Kucinich. Okay, thank you. To be paid at the rate approved by the Attorney General, and this is in the matter of Stevens et al. Versus St. Tammany Parish in 22nd JDDC. That's my motion.
Second. A motion is seconded that we hire an attorney, outside attorney, to handle this litigation. And is there any discussion from the council? Please vote.
Motion is unanimous, no one absent.
Hearing no more business, the meeting is adjourned.